welcome back to Ascent Trading. Today what we're going to be talking about is the 11 sectors. Now, these 11 sectors are the core parts of our market and what really move our market. We also have some other stocks that we look at on a regular basis to kind of help with the sector analysis, and we'll go through and just discuss what they are and what sort of stocks they consist of. When we talk about these 11 sectors, and I'll put them up on screen now as I list them off to you, we're talking about the XLK, the XLF, the XLV, the XLRE, the XLE, the XLY, the XLC, the XLI, the XLP, the XLE, the XLB, and I think I got them all. So we'll put those up on screen so you guys can realize. We'll put the ticker symbol up as well so you guys can follow along. But realistically, what we need to realize is that each one of these sectors are a core component of our stock market and our economy. So this is all relevant knowledge to our trading. We need to be aware of these sectors as we make trades because they influence our equities and they influence our indexes. They also influence themselves. They move themselves. You can trade these on a regular basis. I believe there's futures for these as well. We'll talk about the three most relevant indexes that I kind of equate with my sectors. And I've been watching these three pretty religiously through 2025 and, newly into 2026. But first off, we're going to look at the HYG. And this is the yield of, I believe, the bonds of the U.S. And this is important to note because this has been a key indicator on pullbacks and, reversals going through the index market. I know I've used these charts on SPY to kind of calculate where the week's trajectory price will be. And it's a really helpful tool to see how kind of it gets affected by federal funds rate or the federal rate change or anything that has to do with the Fed. So this is a great indicator to kind of see where price is going based off of yield of bonds. The next sector indicator we'll talk about is the TLT. Now this falls under the same category as the HYG as it discussed the 20-year treasury bond yield. What's great about this is that this is the exact inverse of the HYG. So while the HYG rises, this will drop, and vice versa. So this is another great indicator to look at for more long-term investing. And of course, the last indicator that we're going to look at is the SMH. And I'm going to be honest with you, going through 2025 and 2026, if you are not watching the SMH, you obviously did not trade well. The SMH is the semiconductor ETF. This is your NVIDIA, your Broadcom, your big AI stock companies. This is the index to watch. And this was a great technical indicator throughout the entire year, especially with the April pullback and all that. It was great to base your trades off of if you took any equities in, Palantir, NVIDIA, etc. I like this. I took a lot of positions on this in early 25. It's a great indicator to watch just overall for trading. The first sector we're going to talk about, and in my opinion the most important, is the XLK. Now the XLK is information technology. So what does that mean? These are your hardwares, your softwares, your semiconductors, and your AI stocks. So when we talk about the XLK and how much weight it has, it's up there with the SMH, I would say. It's basically has the same weight. It moves a lot faster because there's a lot more volume going into the AI and semiconductor trade. And this sector really just composes of your NVIDIA, your Apple, Microsoft, Broadcom, Micron, AMD, Palantir. I would say on the lower end you have like IBM, you have Cisco. There's some other lower tier things. I know Take-Two Interactive falls under the software sector. So this has a lot of weight because it's mostly our Mag 7 names. The next sector we'll talk about, and the second heaviest weight, I would say, is the XLY. And what these are consumer non-necessity stocks. So basically it's your automotive, your hotels, your media, any sort of online shopping, any sort of non-necessity consumer items. So when we talk about this sector and how it moves, we can say that obviously consumerism is on the high, right? Inflation may be high, but people are still spending money. Consumerism will never go away because that's the type of system we live in. We live in a capitalistic state. We make sure that money flows throughout everybody, right? It's consumer to business, business to government, outsourced back to the consumer with work. That's just how capitalism works. That's how our government works. And when we talk about the XLY, we're really talking about, Amazon, Tesla, Home Depot, there's McDonald's even is in there. You got like TJ Maxx, Lowe's, any sort of Starbucks maybe, any sort of consumer non-necessity is in there, and it has a lot of weight simply because of how capitalistic our society is. The third sector we're going to talk about is the XLV. This is your healthcare sector. These are all of your pharmaceutical companies, all of your drug companies, every sort of, healthcare company. Anyone who provides any sort of doctors to the public or keeps medical records. This is the sector. And I've been watching this one really a lot recently simply because it's kind of gearing up for a good move, I'd say. We have a lot of thin structure going up on the weekly chart and some nice tight high and some nice high and tight consolidation. Of course, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. It's just something I've been realizing and noticing. I've been watching this religiously lately. So when we talk about the XLV, what stocks are we talking about? Well, Eli Lilly and Co. That's a big one. There's Johnson and Johnson, United Healthcare. Obviously, Pfizer falls under this, but it's a low market cap because no one invests into it. Moderna. I can't say that I know a lot of healthcare stocks simply because it's not the best sector to invest in. I would say it's a lot of I don't know. I see healthcare as very crooked. That's just me though. That's personal. But whenever I'm investing into the healthcare sector, I'm usually investing into UNH or Eli Lilly or Johnson and Johnson. I'm never really investing into the actual sector itself. The fourth sector we're going to look at is the XLU. Now, I call this sector the monopoly sector, not because of all the companies that are in it, but because it's the utilities on a monopoly board, right? What I classify this sector is as your natural gas, your water, and your electricity stocks. Basically everything in your house that it needs to function, right? If you have a stove, you need gas. If you have the lights on, you need electricity. If you have a toilet to flush, you need water. It's all part of life and what we pay for. So this is a constant, upswing pretty much. It's a good investment overall. I'm not heavily invested in the stock. I really don't know much about it. But what I do know is what it consists of and how much weight it has in the market. Not a lot of weight. At number 5, we're going to move on to my favorite sector. And I don't know why it's my favorite. Maybe it's because I'm just greedy. But the financial sector, the XLF. When we talk about the XLF, it's basically your big banks, any sort of financial institutions, investing institutions. It's all your firms. It's your insurance as well. It all is basically the greediest people in the world. That's basically what I can tell you about this stock or this sector. When we're talking about the stocks that are in the sector, we're talking about J.P. Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway, any sort of investment bank, Goldman Sachs, Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citizens. It's all banks and financial institutions. That's why this is the most manipulated. I wouldn't use that terminology, but I would say manipulated. Because banks do so many, different things that sway it. We saw J.P. Morgan with the silver short. Once the public found out that they shorted silver, it wasn't that good. It was a pretty bad backlash. That affected this. It's all relevant, and of course, this is one of the sectors that you definitely want to look at because this is a risk-on factor in the market. And I don't know if I've covered this in the channel, but I'll cover it here. When we talk about risk-on assets, we're talking about assets that usually raise in price while everything else tanks, right? We call them risk-on assets because they save our butts from losing money. You can call it a leverage too, but basically these stocks are more passive moving in drawdown than most of indexes and normal equities. So risk-on assets are always safe to invest in as you're less likely to lose a bigger amount. The next sector we're going to look at is the XLI, which is your industrial sector. Basically, it's all of your machining, your manufacturing, any sort of industry, right? When we're talking about the XLI, it's a defensive sector, right? It's a risk-on asset. What you'll see on the chart, obviously, is recently it's been in a huge uptick with war tension with Iran, and the reason it's in a huge uptick is because of what stocks consist of it, right? These stocks are, Boeing, RTX, which makes the cameras for drones, the UAVs and all that. You have Caterpillar, which is, your big machines, all of your big paneling on your Humvees. Caterpillar makes all the heavy machinery for the military. And then obviously your actual defense stocks like Kratos and Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin's a personal favorite of mine and most investors, especially in this market, with the XLI. The next sector we're going to talk about is the XLP. Now, these are your consumer staples or your consumer necessities. These involve your groceries, your beverages, any sort of house goods, basically what you need on a week-to-week basis. And when we talk about the stocks that are in the sector, we're talking about Walmart, Costco. Here's an interesting one. Philip Morris, who makes cigarettes and nicotine vapes, is also in this because that's considered a necessity in our economy. That's crooked. That's crooked in my opinion. Pepsi, Monster, Coke, any sort of those companies are in here. This is simply a good sector just based off of how much people consume. Again, consumer staples and consumer non-necessities are constantly on the rise because people are constantly spending their money. The next sector we're going to talk about is the XLE, and this has been on an absolute face rip recently. I'm heavily invested into the XLE recently, and it's just going up and away over these past few weeks. The XLE is your energy companies. Basically, this is more of a alternate energy versus oil, right? A lot of oil companies are in the energy section, but there's also a lot of alternate energy companies in this sector. So when we're talking about the stocks in this sector, we're talking about Chevron, Halliburton, Valvero. There's Sunrun, Bloom Energy is a big one that I've been heavily invested into recently. And these stocks are obviously always going to be on the rise because oil is a huge thing, alternate energy is a huge thing, and we're never going to have to. We're going to have to constantly keep producing more and more energy because there's more and more people on this planet every day. So again, another very safe asset to put your money into. The third to last sector we're going to talk about is the XLB. Now, these are your materials. So when we talk about what's in this stock, right, and I don't have to explain what's in materials because it's all your metals and all of your materials and stuff, right? Gold, silver, platinum, copper, okay? Those 4 items right there are in this sector. What did we talk about 2 videos ago? The finite resources, okay? This is constantly going to have an uptrend, right? When we run out of resources and cannot produce more, demand goes up, supply goes down, price increase. We talked about this in our top stock picks for 2026 video. It all has relevance, but I'm heavily invested into this, obviously, with my gold and silver positions, and this is just a good overall risk-free asset, I would say. So the second to last sector we're going to talk about, and this is going to be a quick one, is the real estate sector, the XLRE. I know little to none about this. I really don't know what the companies are what it's really composed of. I could imagine it's a lot of real estate companies, a lot of landscaping companies, a lot of maybe house building companies, but I am not invested into this sector at all. I don't imagine it really moves that much, very little to none. I can imagine when the housing crisis happened, it tanked a lot, but obviously we don't see that in this chart. So nothing really to say on the XLRE. The final and last sector we're going to talk about is the XLC. Your communications. These are your television companies, these are your media companies, these are your entertainment companies. This has been on a constant rise as we get further and further into a more dystopian society. Obviously, streaming has a huge impact on this with entertainment. Communications obviously are growing with AI, so this has great implications. And when we talk about this sector, the stocks that we're going to talk about are a lot of Mag 7 names. We're talking about Google, Meta, Netflix, EA's in here, Verizon, Disney's in here. There's a lot of Mag 7 names in here, and there's a lot of BS in here, but this is a good stock, or this is a good sector simply because just with the way the world's going, I can see this going a lot better, or not a lot better. I'm getting really tired. I'm so sorry. I've been filming and working all day, and I'm just really kind of starting to burn out. So if the end of this video feels rushed or anything, just know it probably is. Anyways, I could see this going a lot further in price. So with that, every equity in the market belongs to a sector. And when we say sectors, basically what we're talking about is genres of stocks. Sectors are important to keep an eye on, simply to see where equity groups are going and how that can influence the overall market. It's very important to be as a good trader, to be relevant of most knowledge you can in the market. And these hold a lot of knowledge. These will tell you how price will move on your index, on your equities, basically everything. When we think about the market as a whole, we have the whole market, and then on the outside of that, we have the sectors, right? And then inside those sectors, we have our equities. And of course, indexes and, exchanges all fall in between there. But sectors are a core part of the stock market and our trading, and it's important to know how to look at them and what they are. So I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate you guys listening. I hope you took notes. Thank you again. Like, subscribe, drop a comment, and stay tuned for our next video. As always, stay green and have a great trading week.